You may not consciously recognize it, but much of the anger you have felt throughout your life shares a common origin. It does not emerge from within you. Instead, it is ignited by the words, glances, or actions of others. The most painful reality is that you have allowed these external influences to penetrate your inner world without even being aware of it. You have let someone stroll through the corridors of your mind, provoke your emotions, disrupt your equilibrium, and taint your entire day with their negativity. Negativity that they projected rather than something you created. This is a subtle but profound surrendering of your personal power. When someone acts disrespectfully, utters an offensive remark, or simply fails to meet your expectations, you are faced with two choices. You can either maintain your inner stability or allow them to dictate your emotional state. Yet more often than not, you find yourself reacting instinctually, feeling anger, hurt, or silent bitterness. By doing so, you hand over the steering wheel of your emotional life to them, often without a second thought. Just one inconsiderate comment can rob you of sleep, while the offender drifts off peacefully, leaving you to grapple with the aftermath of their thoughtlessness. Let's take a moment for introspection. How many times have you granted unworthy individuals the power to affect your inner peace? How frequently have you allowed careless words to overshadow your day, obscuring the good moments? How often have you inadvertently punished yourself for failing to control your reaction to someone else's negativity? Here lies an uncomfortable truth. Your anger is not a direct result of someone else's actions. Rather, it stems from your inability to regulate what you allow into your life. You leave the door to your mind wide open, unguarded, allowing anyone to traipse into your most sacred spa, to the very realm that dictates how you feel, act, and respond. Understand this: no one is born with the right to make you feel sad, nor does anyone possess the inherent power to hurt you. It is your choice to grant them access to your thoughts, your heart, and your energy, perpetuating a cycle of emotional turmoil. Emotions ultimately are not random catastrophes raining down from the sky. They are responses you can learn to train and manage. When someone interrupts you mid-sentence, belittling your thoughts and making you feel small, your immediate reaction is often reflexive. However, that does not mean you lack the capacity to choose differently. There is always a fleeting moment between the trigger and your response, sometimes only a fraction of a second, but enough for you to assert your presence. If you cultivate the awareness to claim that moment, you will find yourself reacting not with anger or resentment, but with intention. It's crucial to remind yourself that you do not need to react according to someone else's provocation. Individuals who are emotionally weak often seek to elicit reactions from you. They thrive on your emotions, using them as fuel to validate their own existence. If you succumb to anger, they feel victorious. If you express disappointment, they believe they have power over you. When you allow their words to determine your self-worth, you effectively hand over the reins of your mind to them. They don't need to be eloquent or wise. They simply need to know how you will react. Each time you respond as they anticipate, you become a puppet on strings pulled by the unpredictable whims of your own emotions. The painful truth is this: you have not become a victim due to their strength, but because you have yet to awaken to your own power. You are not a mere victim of words. You are a victim of surrendering your self-worth. While you seek and not prevent others from behaving poorly, you possess the absolute authority to decide whether their behavior will disrupt your peace. Every day you encounter a myriad of words, actions, and silences, much like passing crowds on a busy street. You cannot stop them from coming, but you can resolve not to open the door to every single one. Your inner peace is a sacred territory, and only what is valuable should be permitted entry. If you owned a house, would you let any random person barge in uninvited? So why do you allow others to invade your inner world without any boundaries? If you had a bank account, would you readily share your access code with a stranger? Then why do you permit people to withdraw your emotions and drain your energy with careless words? From this moment forward, it is paramount that you adopt the mindset of a gatekeeper. Not out of fear, but through discernment. It is not about shutting others out completely. It is about selectively opening yourself up to those who deserve your attention and energy. No one can make you lose control unless you give them the power to do so. Nobody can incite your anger unless you leave your mind vulnerable and unguarded. And under no circumstances should another person be able to truly hurt you. Peace is not something that can simply be stolen. It is a state of being that you must actively protect day by day. While you may not be able to control the actions of those around you, you can entirely govern what you allow into your heart. This will mark the beginning of a life that is no longer dictated by others, a life defined by choices rather than reactions, a life where you establish boundaries instead of remaining a victim, a life where you are no longer tossed about by emotional currents, but rather stand firm as the steady captain navigating your ship in the direction of your choosing. This is not an act of miraculous change. It is a conscious decision, beginning with you, right here, right now. You were never taught that emotions can be cues. Cultivated in the same way muscles can be strengthened. That calmness is not an innate trait, but the result of dedicated practice. Thus, you grow up believing that emotions are as unpredictable as the weather, sometimes sunny, other times stormy, with the expectation that you must simply endure them. But this belief is misleading. Emotions do not simply materialize and dissipate like a summer storm. They emerge from a series of triggers, beliefs, and personal interpretations. More importantly, they are responses you have repeatedly allowed to dominate your experience. Each time someone makes an unkind remark, your reflex is to respond with anger. When a friend stands you up, disappointment arises. When you feel misunderstood, hurt takes over. These reactive patterns arise not because the situations themselves carry inherent negativity, but because you have conditioned your mind to associate them with specific emotional responses. You do not react solely because of the situation. You react due to the ingrained operating system your mind has yet to reprogram. The reality is that emotions are habits. Just as an irritable person is not born that way, but rather has repeated a specific response until it becomes a natural reflex, you too can rewire your emotional habits. If you understand how to train your body to grow stronger, why would you doubt your ability to train your mind to cultivate greater stability? If someone can learn to run a marathon through hard work and perseverance, then you must also recognize that emotional steadiness can be developed through mindful practice. Consider, for example, individuals who encounter the same unpleasant situations you do, yet they remain calm, refuse to complain, and protect their energy. Their circumstances are not inherently different. The distinction lies solely in their level of internal training. The fundamental difference between someone ruled by their emotions and someone who masters their responses is that the former allows situations to dictate their moods, while the latter adheres to principles that steer their behavior. The remarkable truth is that with commitment to the practice of pausing before reacting, you can become that principled individual. A reaction is not an inevitability. It is a decision made so swiftly that it often escapes your awareness. Yet if you slow down that moment, even if only by a few seconds, you gain access to something invaluable, the power of conscious choice. Imagine this scenario. Someone hurls an insult your way. In the past, you would have reacted instinctively, akin to someone stepping on your foot, leading you to shout out in reflex. But this time, you pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself internally, is this reaction genuinely necessary? What will it contribute to my life beyond draining my energy? By posing these questions, you transition from mere reflex to a place of heightened awareness. Living through this awareness enables you to break free from the tyranny of emotions that once dictated your reactions. No one becomes calm simply by wishing it. Emotional mastery requires practice. Initially, you may stumble. Old patterns may resurface as you navigate the terrain of your emotions. But instead of feeling shame or denying those feelings, observe what happens. Each time you lose control, view it as an opportunity for growth. Each time you manage to respond effectively, acknowledge that success. Inner strength is built through patience with oneself. Maturity does not equate to numbing one's emotions. It involves understanding how to feel without being engulfed, how to respond without exploding. Imagine holding a cup filled with boiling water. If you allow it to spill at the slightest bump, you are the first one to get burned. But if you learn to hold it steady, step back, and breathe gently, you protect both yourself and those around you. Anger operates similarly. Holding back your emotional response safeguards your stability. The real question is not how to avoid feeling anger, but how to respond when it arises. Emotions will manifest. It is part of our human experience. However, your subsequent behavior is what defines you. The individual unaware of the forces driving their emotions remains vulnerable. In contrast, the one who recognizes their emotions and maintains their composure is unshakable. The path toward emotional mastery begins with self-observation. Each day brings circumstances that challenge your comfort. Rather than avoiding these experiences, view them as tools for growth. Pay attention to how your body tenses, how your voice shifts, how your mind races to rationalize your reactions. Then gently ask yourself, is this response truly warranted? You may be amazed at the power of inquiry. While questions won't eliminate your emotions, they can slow them down and provide room for a more deliberate response. You will never attain perfection, but with consistent practice, you will find yourself growing more composed each day. Embrace the journey towards emotional freedom. Each time you resist the urge to react in previously conditioned ways, you take steps closer to liberation. The most beautiful reality is that once you gain control over your reactions, no person or circumstance can dominate you again. While you may not directly influence the actions of others, you can absolutely determine your response to their behavior. When you achieve that level of mastery, you transition from being controlled to becoming the one in control. Every time you lash out, shout, or retaliate in a moment of unrestrained rage, you might believe you are reclaiming justice. In truth, you are relinquishing something far more valuable than any fleeting sense of victory. You are surrendering your power. This is not a power over others, but rather power over yourself. When you lack self-mastery, every confrontation you encounter is a defeat. Regardless of the superficial success you may perceive, reacting impulsively means you are not choosing. You are merely reacting to instinct. True strength does not lie in responding to provocation. It resides in restraint. The person who resorts to shouting as a means of demonstrating strength often reveals the greatest weakness in themselves. The real demonstration of control can be found in the individual who remains calm and steady. While anger might give the illusion of taking assertive action, it, in reality, signifies a loss of control. You are not acting from reason, but reacting from a place of unchecked emotion. If others can trigger that response, they have effectively seized control over your emotional landscape. You might be intelligent and resilient, someone who has surmounted significant challenges, yet a single thoughtless comment can upend your emotional balance or provoke actions you never intended to take. Just one small incident can mar your entire mood, not because the provocateur is strong, but because you have permitted a vulnerability to remain unprotected. This vulnerability does not stem from weakness. It arises from a failure to acknowledge that losing control over your emotions equates to losing control over your life. Visualize yourself grasping the steering wheel of a car on a bustling highway. If every time someone honks at you, you jerk the wheel, switch lanes impulsively, or slam the brakes, you not only jeopardize your safety, but also relinquish the driver's seat. The same principle applies to life. There will be horns, stares, and comments. They are not invitations for conflict, but tests of your control and composure. Each time you lose your temper, you have handed over the wheel to someone else. When you cannot manage your own actions, you become vulnerable to being controlled by anyone around you. There exists a dangerous misconception that anger signifies strength. However, if your strength is contingent upon someone else's behavior, it is not authentic power. If a person's actions provoke you to the point where you lash out, and they can dictate your emotional state through a glance or a comment, you are under their influence. True power does not require visible demonstrations to assert itself. It manifests in moments of calm, where nothing needs to be proven to prove oneself. The more someone feels the compulsion to raise their voice, to impose lessons upon others, the easier it is for them to lose control. In doing so, they often sacrifice their dignity, integrity, credibility, and even their presence in exchange for responding to something that could have been ignored. You may be accomplished, educated, and held in high regard, but a few moments of emotional recklessness can dismantle that image. This shift is not just perceived externally, it can tarnish your own self-image as well. Those in positions of true power do not easily engage in futile emotional antics. They comprehend a fundamental truth. Emotional reactivity is the shortest route to a loss of both self-respect and the respect of others. When you react, you are essentially performing a role scripted by someone else. You are not the central figure in your own story. You become a mere dependent response. The paradox is that the more explosive a person's temperament, the more easily they are led by others. Well-placed triggers can incite an outburst, and each explosion further erodes personal power. Emotional manipulators do not require high intellect. They need only an understanding of how to provoke you. They employ tactics that turn you into the irrational one, while they assume control of the narrative, regardless of right or wrong. Losing control harms you in the moment, but it also inflicts enduring damage to your sense of self-esteem. Once the emotional storm subsides and the impulsive words and actions have erupted, you are often left with regret, a haunting, internal dialogue that echoes, "I shouldn't have let myself respond that way." You know you are capable of exhibiting better behavior, yet you fail not due to a lack of ability, but rather a neglect of emotional discipline, the key to maintaining control in any circumstance. You may not be able to prevent others from demonstrating disrespect. However, you always have the option to determine how you respond. Emphasize responding rather than simply reacting. While you may not be able to smile right away after being insulted, you can decide how to choose your next steps thoughtfully. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with more motivational content. Like, share, and comment to support our work and spread the message.